Hello, welcome to Wood Spun Round. This is Doug. I'm glad to have you in the shop with me today. I've got a piece of cherry here that it was a piece of unused wood that was just waiting for a chance to be turned into something beautiful. Took it to the bandsaw and cut approximately a 4-inch disc, 2 inches thick. Here all I'm doing is squaring up the side, getting it even so it's not feeling like it's bouncing around quite so much. It's very visible, so you can rest assured it was noticeable to the tool as well. Just 3 or 4 passes here, and it was round. Didn't take a whole lot because, like I said, I cut it on the bandsaw. Starting to face off the bottom end here, I'm going to put just a very small tenon on this piece. And I guess I should go ahead and tell you, this is going to be kind of a calabash style bowl. One of the things that I've been seeing here lately is round bottom bowls, and I've never turned a round bottom bowl. And so I'm practicing this. I'm actually going to demonstrate this for Worldwide Wood Turners. Free online wood turning group. We meet Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern, go from 7 to 10. People come in at all through that 3-hour time period. People leave all through the time period as well. It just depends on what their needs are, and nobody holds anything against anybody. We just come in, spend as much time as we have available, tell some good stories, share some great information, and just have a grand time talking about turning only. So I've made the tenon, and I'm just rounding the bottom a bit here, kind of rounding it so that I can blend into the upper section that will taper back into toward the center. Doing this now because once I turn it around, it'll be too close to the chuck. I won't be able to get there. Won't be able to get that close to the tenon ever again. Nice curve there. Just kind of blending and smoothing here before I turn it back around. I think I said this is cherry. It's very dry. This is a piece that was split off of a log that I had. The bowls that I have turned out of that log, I've got some more to turn, but the ones I've already turned were very dry. This offcut was extremely dry, but you could see there I was getting very nice shavings. This is a beautiful little piece of cherry, locally grown, just maybe a half a mile from my house. You may or may not be interested that the tool that I'm using there is of course, it's a bowl gouge, but it's a 1/2-inch Doug Thompson bowl gouge. It's in a handle that I turned. If I'm not mistaken, the lathe speed here is about 1,000, maybe 1,200 RPMs. And I'm just making sure there was a little bit of a lump there that I was getting out, and just checking that I got it out. Using a shear scrape to take off as much of the ridges as I can. Smoother I get that surface now, the less sanding I have to do later. I've turned it around in the chuck now, and I'm just facing off the front end of it. You see the hole there. I was holding it originally with the worm screw. Does a great job on pieces of wood this size. I've used it with 8-inch, like 2x8, and it works very well with that. My particular worm screw in this particular chuck only sticks out about a 1/2 inch or so beyond the face of the jaws, and so I don't have to go very deep with that hole. I've got the front square, and now I'm just working from the center back out toward the outside I'm cutting toward the center, but I'm working my way back to the outside edge so that I can establish my rim thickness and wall thickness as well. What I do on my wall, I like to do all the way down to the bottom. This calabash shape has its own problems, it gives me a hard time in some sections because you do have to undercut that rim a bit, not actually at the rim, but down in it. So that transition from wall to bottom is a little extra difficult with a bowl gouge. It can be done. I typically will have some tear out, but that's easy enough to fix. This cherry is prone to tearing out a little bit anyway, but it sands so nicely that it's really not a problem. But you'll see how I deal with it here when I get down toward the bottom, and I'll point that out to you. As you can see, there are still a lot of nice curls coming out. I'm slicing that wood, not we're not scraping or anything like that. I'm not getting dust or anything. I'm slicing and getting curls all the way to the very bottom. Some are smaller than others, but it's still slicing, still getting curls coming off of the wood because that tool is sharp, and I'm I'm kind of floating that bevel all the way through there and presenting that cutting edge at a bit of an angle. Here I'm coming backwards. It's really against the grain, but it's helping me to take out a little bit of that transition area. Now right there you saw me do something that I don't suggest that just anybody do. I was checking with the lathe running, I was checking the thickness of the walls with my digital calipers. My thumb and forefinger in that case is probably the best tool that I've got. I can very quickly feel my depth, but also the thickness of the wall. Is it the same from top to the bottom of the cut? Is there a lump somewhere? Is there a ridge somewhere? If I can feel that very quickly and very easily without grabbing hold of it, I just feel is all I'm doing. Just taking some more out of the bottom. Still just a little thick there. Let's check it again. That transition area is the part that stays the thickest. The bowl gouge, because of the angles, and it's kind of hard to explain. I could draw you a picture better, but because of the angle of the bevel, I have a hard time getting that to cut down in that transition area. So once I get the sides and the bottom pretty well where I want it, I'll bring out a different tool just so I can get that transition. Should be just about done with this bowl gouge. You can see my thumb go through the transition to the bottom. I'm getting what I can with this bowl gouge, but I've about run out of space. I'll hit the shaft of the bowl gouge on the rim if I try to get the transition too fine. I can get it to a point, but I can't get it too exactly right. Get a little more if I go do a back cut here. And do a back cut out to the transition, and I come down from the top to the transition and come pretty close to getting it pretty complete. Here we go, we've changed now. See, I got that big red handle. That's my Easy Wood Tools. It's a CI. Mine is labeled a CI0 or CIO. It's the finisher. This is the original size finisher. With this tool, this carbide tip, I'm able to go in there and go from top to bottom, bottom to top, get all of it, even the transition I'm able to get. And I'm getting, this is a fairly new cutter on here, and so I'm getting good cuts on it. It's still a scraping cut, but it is a cut. I'm not getting dust off, I'm getting shavings. It looked there like I took my hand and wiped the top of that carbide off. I did not. Um, I did that when I first got these carbides. And my left hand had so many little cuts in it because that carbide is so sharp. It cuts and you don't even feel it until you see the blood. So I've turned it back around now. I've gotten the inside done and I've turned it back around. I've gone back to my 1/2-inch bowl gouge. And I'm taking that tenon off. What I've done is put it on the jaws and open the jaws up. They're almost too wide. They're right on the verge of being way too wide, but they're not. They're okay. And here you can see I'm simply cutting from the center and coming around. I'm going with the grain, trying to make a nice finishing cut that makes that a nice smooth transition and rounds that bottom all the way from the center to the highest point in the side. Little nib that I can see in the center. Got that off. Making sure I don't have any ridges. So now I'm going to put my tools aside. We're going to start the sanding process. It doesn't take very long to turn this. I was paying attention to the time, and I was really surprised myself. It's a very short time to turn it. What takes time in most everything we do is the sanding and the finishing. It's one reason I don't like the sanding. It takes so long. But if I don't do a good job of sanding, I can't get a good finish. And I've just gotten to the point now, if it doesn't have a good finish, I might as well toss it in a fire pile. Might as well have not even turned it even. But with this piece, I'm going to go ahead and start with 60 grit. I want to get some little lines that I'm seeing there. You notice I didn't turn it off and examine it. I can see I've got some tool lines in it, but they're not big, they're not deep, and I know I can take care of it very quickly with a little bit of 60 grit. It doesn't take very long. But I'll sand from 60 all the way to 320 grit. I'm not going to show you all of that. In fact, here I've already gone through the 320 grit. I blew it out, blew all the dust off, and here I'm using a little bit of alcohol just to wash the remaining dust off of the piece. Denatured alcohol on just a blue shop towel. In fact, I show you right there. There's a little bit of brown tint on that blue paper towel. That's that little bit of dust that was still in there, even though I used my compressed air to clean it off. So I put that one away. And next is a bit of sanding sealer. We want to put some sanding sealer on there to seal the wood. It also raises the grain just a little bit. And I'm going to use the Axe abrasive paste on this piece, and so raising the grain is a good thing. It gives me a good base for this finish. The Axe abrasive paste and the wax, and this sanding sealer is just a good base for that. In fact, sanding sealer is a good base for any finish, no matter what you're putting on. Even if you're using an oil, the whole idea with the oil is to soak into the wood. And even with sanding sealer, if you denib it, you let it dry, you denib it, that oil will still penetrate that wood. It will not penetrate quite as far as if you put it on raw wood, but it will still penetrate and it'll do the job. What you'll find is that the sanding sealer will save you one, maybe even two coats of oil because it does not penetrate quite as far. With other finishes, it just makes sense. It's like a primer for paint.
Abrasive paste.
But since I'm going to go straight to wax, I'm going to go with the abrasive paste on this. I don't need to denib. The abrasive paste will take care of all those little hairs that stick up because of the sanding sealer.
You don't want to be stingy with it either. Turn your lathe down.
I'm going to slow the lathe down and turn it on. I'm going to start at about 250, I believe it was.
Forward, there we are.
And that's just to work that paste in. As I feel the abrasive starting to break down, I will speed the lathe up and I'll go to a clean piece. In fact, I'll speed the lathe up a couple of times and continue to use the same area of the paper towel that I used to apply the paste to the wood. After that, I'll speed the lathe up and move to a clean piece of paper towel, because after the abrasive has broken down, it's a matter of buffing off all of that, the wax and the oil that's in the abrasive paste.
And so it does an awfully good job. I'm not going to change paper towel spot, but I'm going to speed my lathe up. I'm going to go up to 440.
There I am speeding the lathe up. I'm still using that original area of the paper towel.
Just continuing on. I could throw out some numbers here, but they're guesses. They'd be wild guesses. About to the point now where I hear it there. I'm not hearing a whole lot of the grit at this point. A little bit, not much. It took me a while.
One of the interesting things about abrasive paste is that you sand to 240 or 320, and the abrasive paste picks up at 320, and it takes you up to about 1,000 grit in your process without all the dust. And so it saves you on paper, it saves you on the dust. If you think about it, if you're doing everything like you're supposed to, if you've got a vacuum or some kind of dust extraction running, while you sand all those higher grits like you should, you save the electricity of all of that. You also don't need to be wearing a dust mask when you're using abrasive paste, because there's nothing floating through the air. It's all staying right there in the paste and on your paper. I'm to a place now where I'm buffing off all of that. The Axe and most of the abrasive paste are made in a similar manner. The biggest difference is the proportions that they use. But beeswax and mineral oil are the carriers for the abrasive.
Over here to another clean spot.
The beeswax is the actual carrier. The mineral oil softens or keeps the beeswax soft, so it doesn't get hard on you. It's easier to apply. It makes it a paste instead of being a cake of wax. But I'm just buffing that off. Don't really have to take it too far, but I want to make sure I get all the grit off of the wood. So I'm left with this silky smooth, semi-shiny piece of wood.
So far, does go into the wood, but just not as far.
I know some people will use the abrasive paste and don't put anything over it. They like the look of the wood with just the abrasive paste.
8 times out of
and
10,
it does
9
look
times out of
good.
10, I forget.
But that
We'll use the
abrasive
sanding
paste is
sealer
really
before the
not a
abrasive
finish.
paste.
There are none of the
What I've been
manufacturers that
told is
call it a
just use a
finish at
second
all.
coat of
They all
the second
suggest something else
usage
on
of the
top of
abrasive
that.
paste.
With
The
Axe,
first one kind of acts as your sealer. The
he
second
really
one,
likes you to
when he comes back,
use
cleans
nothing
everything
but
off very, very well.
his wax
All
on
right,
top
that's
of the
it for the
abrasive
paste.
paste. He sells them as a kit together. I don't even think he'll sell you just the abrasive by itself or just the wax by
I'm gonna take my
itself.
paper towel
They come together.
to the point where I was running
The wax jar is usually
1600
just a
RPMs.
little
This is at
smaller than the
940,
abrasive jar,
and that's really fast enough
but
to
it's
get the job.
good. The wax is
Just
good, so I have no complaints
if
with
I
it
had put too much
at
paste on there
all.
and it was
I'm not sponsored by Tom at all. I just use
still having
the
residue,
product
I would
because
speed
I
up, go
like
to
it.
another clean area again, and sometimes it just takes.
I'm gonna shut it
You
back
speed
down.
up
I'm gonna
that
put the
much,
wax on.
that many times, and it causes you to be up that fast. You don't have to be up that
I
fast.
started to
There's no
say
reason to be up that
stationary with the
fast
lathe
unless you just
stationary.
like
It's
it that
not
way.
really stationary though, is it? I'm
I'm still getting
turning
used
it
to it.
with
I
my
used to
hand,
never turn over 1,000
but it's
RPMs.
not under power.
I had new turners that I was teaching.
This is
Why you
a
turn so
thin
slow?
wax. It's not real
Well,
hard.
it's just where I was comfortable, and when this was a
Very liquidy when you
belt-change
start to
lathe,
apply it.
before I changed
But
it
as
over,
it dries,
it's just
you'll
the way it
start to
was.
feel it
Okay, there's the wax.
starting to grab a little bit.
Good
Um,
complete coating.
and when
Turn
it
it on.
does
I've already
that, you
turned the
can
speed
turn your
down
lathe
to
on and start
340.
buffing.
Here again, I'm just
I've got the
using
lathe turned
the
on
rotation
slow
of the
here,
lathe just to spread this wax
200 or
on the
300
wax
RPMs. The reason for that is
into the
just to
wood.
spread the wax around. Make sure I've got
Sanding sealer's not going to really work into the wood a whole lot.
a real good coat, an even coat of
Use the
wax
abrasive paste, which
over
has
the
more
entire
wax
surface
in
of the
it.
wood.
Again, it's not going to let you work the wax into the wood.
And once I feel it
Tremendous
starting to
amount.
grab a bit, I'll go ahead and speed the lathe up. I'll go up to
Let's run that up. There's 1,000
12,
RPMs.
1400 RPM, something in that neighborhood.
1,200 RPMs. I'm going to open it up,
Move over,
turn it over, so I've
just
got a
showing
clean
you there. I'm
spot.
moving to a clean area on the paper towel.
Very little pressure.
I'm going to start buffing, very light pressure.
Use the speed of the lathe.
No need for pressure here.
Warm that wax. Buff it in.
And the nice thing, what I like about the wax,
It is
it's
smooth.
pretty
It is
simple,
smooth underneath this
relatively
paper towel. I
quick
love
to
it.
put on. And if I want more shine than what I'm getting, once I've buffed it and I'm satisfied with it, I will just put some more wax on. You can build that up. In fact, I kind of like to do it, build my wax up over
It feels good.
2 or 3 days. Put a coat of wax on and let it sit 12 hours or 24 hours. Come back and put
You
another
guys
coat
who have
on.
the Nova
And that
DVR,
time period in between the coats
excuse me, if
allows
you have
the
the Nova
previous coat
1624,
to
you're still on a belt
really
drive.
solidify. All the
You can sell some
solvents
pieces, come up with
come out of it,
$700-800.
and the wax
Get
gets as
this
hard as it's going to get
upgrade.
in
This,
really in
this
just a couple of
variable speed
hours. It doesn't
upgrade.
take very long. But then you
It's
can
going to
put
run you
another
$700,
coat on,
maybe a
and
little
it's just
more
like,
now.
it just all the
Of
better.
course, the year most all machinery went up, but it has made a world of difference for me. I've had it for
Can't begin to tell you how
how
good
long have I had it?
this is starting to feel
Almost 2 years now.
under that paper towel. I can feel how
Year and a
smooth
half,
and how
2 years.
slick that is.
And be able to turn that knob and change the speed.
Well, this is a fun little piece to do. It's a little bit of a challenge to get my head wrapped around it, but as you can see, it really was not very hard. I would turn that bowl around to take that tenon off anyway, and so to make it round was really not that big a deal. There, I'm just showing you that it is round. It wobbles, it'll spin, it wiggles and wobbles, and but it won't tip over. It's very nice, and I really enjoy doing it. Maybe you want to take up the challenge. I thank you for joining me tonight in watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, please hit that like button and the subscribe button. If you if you do subscribe, go ahead and hit the notification bell too, and that way you'll know every time I put a new video up. This is Doug at Wood Spun Round, and I hope you're able to spin them round.
And you might have a dime size there where it's actually flat so that they sit still. I don't know. It doesn't matter. This is kind of fun, and it's definitely different. This is Doug at Wood Spun Round. Until we meet again, I hope you're able to spin them round.